Manever I say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there, I see them yopo.
Memo Aquaba Ediba PENDREAM TV Sumestros and any day can out here I subscribe to channel no click a bell and so said the news to our host Sabiti and can in term weti. MPP Communication Director friend Richard Ahiagba and I will good morning Ghana so I bet to be a my ECG boss FR ECG VAT course no chima ECG boss no abeka safa savat akofo adone na aban person mo dey to electricity so Ghana for any two issue for akasa omonti ase no na Richard Ahiagba ka say ECG boss no onye parliamentarian ni dia ne so be implement ndema aban dia hye na nsanti eni ho kwan so ba abonten be ka say savat omo dia to ECG so no be den say omo be implement na no na Randy Abbey no control show no any Richard Ahiagba debate kakra ho it was quite a clash. Richard Randy Abbey anti CSA wo kasa actually ECG boss na men kasa bebre me pese be kwa kwhwe sa video we ni ho kwan Randy Abbey any Richard Ahiagba debate on this ECG VAT any nsema ECG boss no abe kan fa sa VAT no yenko video.
He's calling out the competence, the leadership, and the propriety of those who give the directive by saying that if you want to do something like this, you ought to engage the agency and ask the agency how feasible this will be. You just don't sit in your office and then you issue a directive and give an implementation date. And that it is he who has rather brought it to the attention of the two ministers. And there is a conversation going on.
See, this line of argument that you have taken is going to make the MD's case worse. And I want to answer.
You disagree that is what he's saying?
Oh, no, I don't disagree. I agree with you. But I just don't want that to be, because that is inappropriate to make that suggestion. It's inappropriate.
But there's an audio and video.
No, I agree.
I didn't put the words in his mouth.
I agree. I'm just saying that bringing that to light makes his case worse. I was just trying to summarily just talk about.
For me, it says one thing.
Yeah.
You know, on this DDEP, I kept making the point that look at how the domestic situation was handled, and look at how the external one has been handled. Two completely different approaches. And this, what he's saying, goes to, justify that.
No, you see, so I'm thinking. So here's what I'm saying: that clearly, okay, to deal with what he has said, I'm just quite willing to talk about a technical challenge which is real. All right, so it makes it difficult, and my understanding is that this application that they're using now has been there since 2015 or so, and it was through the facilitation of the IMF World Bank to procure that. It's challenged. It's not a purpose-built application. It's an off-the-shelf application which has challenges. So there are a lot of adaptations. If you look at our unique problem, the challenges in our electricity and consumption space, then you need some adaptation. So to that end, the ECG is investing in applying or procuring a different application that will be custom-made, tailor-made to our situation. So that is the point I suppose he ought to make. Now, veering into the space of legislation, okay, proposing legislation and going through the processes to then make that legislation become law, and then you turn around and say that all that process, okay, does not make sense. And to the extent that you've been directed to implement the outcome of that elaborate process, which involve parliament, involve proposition from the executive, and have gone through a process to make a law. Implement it. If you have challenge, focus on your challenge. He veered off his space. Okay, the other commentary he was making, that is not his jurisdiction. Everybody, the structure of our government has done a piece of work.
The incompetence of the government is creating problems for him.
But you see, this is why I'm saying that you are going into spaces that don't make what he has said come to.
But is that not what he has said?
Yes,
have I not summarized what he said?
You have. Yeah. Okay. But I don't want us to dwell on that.
Okay.
I think that the ECG boss is doing a good job. He's been great since he's been there. But these kinds of talks are not acceptable. He's veering into spaces or talking about things that are above his pay grade. Okay? Seriously above his pay grade. You cannot talk in ways that, in essence, indict Parliament. That the whole process, because you're trying to say that Parliament didn't give due consideration to the matter. Okay? You are in a technical space. They are in a legislative space, having considered the evidence in front of them, the necessity to raise revenue, to do A, B, C, D, and they have passed the law. You are in the technical space now. Can you translate this law into a revenue stream? If you cannot do that, say I cannot do that.
They said before you direct
that
me.
is not his space necessarily.
No, he's just saying
but I'm
before
saying,
you direct me, consult me and ask me.
No.
That the thing has been in the books from 2013. Is there a reason why nobody has directed this implementation?
No.
But you don't just get up and you write a letter to me and then...
I know what point you want to make, but I'm just saying the ECG boss is out of order in the other issue that he raised, completely out of order. You need to focus on the technical bit, which is towards the end he made. He should stick to that.
You don't think he's frustrated?
Well, if he's frustrated, he should still be in control because he's in a public space. It's not his personal space. He's working for the state. And so there are structures. He's not the only one. There's a line of activities that comes through and then it gets to him. He is at the implementation stage. He is trusted out of many to be the boss of ECG, to have the technical know-how with his team to make true on what legislation has come for him to implement. Now, if he's saying that his frustration could mean he's not capable, is that what he's saying? So I'm willing to cut him a slack that is competent. Yeah. So if you want to tell us the challenge you have technically, then let's talk about that. Then you can lead us in a solution to say that these and things I think we can do. We can't do it now, we'll do it later. I'm quite ready to follow that. But if you leave the technical space and you are talking about things that you have no jurisdiction to talk about, I find that problematic.
No,
I think that it's indicting our governance process, it's undermining the process of government, that he is, just because implement a thing, then you are just talking about things that are not within your purview.
What will you
That's
say?
That's unacceptable.
Richard, what will you say to those who say that if we had a few chief executives like this or agency heads like this, who will bring up some of this, I'm trying to find the right expression, but let's say, I was going to say thoughtless. Some of these directives that perhaps could have been handled differently. It would put the people in the executive, senior executive roles on their toes. And they perhaps will not just be issuing directives, but will be engaging a lot more before they do that. Because, the TUC's directive is also on a different level.
Yes.
He is talking about technical.
Yeah.
As for them, they think that burdening the Ghanaian...
It's a challenge.
But then in their subsequent interviews with the TUC, the issue of stakeholder engagements also came up.
Yeah.
Were you engaged? No. Have you been engaged since you raised the issue? No.
What will happen? The ECG boss?
TUC. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I agree with you totally. So there are two different issues there. The engagement with TUC, or broadly just engaging to see the applicability of the law or the appropriateness in terms of collecting the revenue. Those are issues we can talk about in a democratic space. But on one level, right, you make a general assumption that this has gone to Parliament. You have, I think, multiple committees would have worked on it, finance would have worked on it, energy would have worked on it, and then it now goes through to plenary for it to be decided. Now it's law being voted on. So there is a measure of consultation at the level of Parliament that is concluded that yes, this is a good law, we can apply it for purposes of collecting revenue. So there's unanimity in terms of putting that law through to become something that we ought to implement. Now, TUC's position I respect because it is giving, reality and saying that maybe things are hard and therefore we should look at this. And you see, appreciating TUC's position also is appreciating government's position, right? The two are interrelated because government's difficulty translates into citizens' difficulty because government is collecting that revenue to solve problems that affect us citizens. So it is a situation that we need to dialogue about. So that one, there is no problem about that. But the issue here that I have problem with is the ECG boss veering into a space that he has no business going into. Let's take to the technical matters. I know he's leading a process to procure an application, which application will be a bit more dynamic, a bit more responsive, so that if this law ought to be implemented, then it has to be implemented. They will have the technical platform to do the programming that can charge that. But what he has now, my understanding of it is that it's not capable of doing it, which was what I said to you the last time. So the application is the problem. Technical difficulty he's facing is the problem. He should forget about everything he talked about and stick with the technical. That's where he's required to work. That is his job. And if he has anything else to say, probably would have engaged with the committee when they were considering it, and so that maybe he gave his shares.
2013, it probably wasn't there.
Yes, but I'm just saying.
That's 11 years ago.
I'm just saying that that is where he belongs in terms of the process, right? To then offer.
You don't think that in searching for possible places to rake in revenue, and in identifying that, there's an ideal law. The law was passed 2013, which would allow us to charge VAT on domestic consumers and all that. Yes, why not implement it? And if we look at the consumption levels and all that, this is how much times 21.9%. This is how much. That's how they do it. So if you look at the consumption, 2 billion times 21.9%, it gives us so much. That's good. It plugs some hole. So let's go and do it. You don't think that at that point, policy implementation, two things should have happened. One, how come that those who got a law passed in 2013 never ever implemented it for 3 years? How come that to also find out from the ECG how that law can be implemented successfully, because they will be the implementing agency. And then when you're satisfied by these two, then you can issue the directive and say that, because in fact, that level of consultation or stakeholder engagement would have then told you that perhaps if we can even do it, maybe we need to do ABCD before. So 1st January will not be feasible. Maybe 1st of June or 2025 or something. But you just look at the existence of a law, you are looking for money. You say, this is another avenue. 10 years ago, they promulgated this law. They have not done it. If we look at non-lifeline consumers, implementing this can bring us so much. So ECG, I've signed from 1st January, collect and pay the money into domestic revenue.
But so I agree with you. Everything you said is reasonable. But you see, if we want to engage that line of thinking, what we're saying is that every law should be re-examined before we apply them. You can make that point, yes, right? But if it is a law that has been passed by a recognized body of our government, it's a law. Yes. I agree with you to say that maybe you would have to whatever. But then what is wrong if you, the implementing body, taking the law and looking at the condition and your capacity, have problem with it, what is wrong with you writing to your agency and say, these are the challenges we have found? Because the law is good law. That's been passed.
It says he's done that.
Yeah. Okay, but then...
It says that subsequent to receiving the directive, he has contacted both ministers, Energy and Finance, and told them about how it would not be able to implement it.
That's
and
okay.
His point is that if that engagement had taken place earlier, there will not be a directive.
But you see, it's fine. But the point is that those who are given the directive found a good law. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to, because if it's a law, the question...
They found the existence of a law.
Yes.
Whether it's good or not.
No, but if it's not good, they won't pass a bad law. Hey. Because, but I'm just saying that. I mean, just get me here, hear me on the matter that our parliament is sat in wisdom, okay, to pass a law that's a bad law, inherently a bad law, right? So we assume that it's a good law passed by our parliament, unless that we want to say the parliament lacks the capacity to
President
pass.
Akufo-Addo,
But
in 2023, he accented a private member's bill into law. It was gazetted. Months later, he wrote to Parliament trying to rescind what he had done, which had become law.
Yeah. But laws are amended all the time, okay? So you can do that. I'm not saying that there's an absolute position. I'm saying flowing from where you issue a directive. You see a law that is on our books. I am the implementing agency. You think that it's within my capacity. Now, somehow you have a technical know-how in implementing that. So when it comes to you, you don't go and make a legislative accusation. You don't go and make the power to issue a directive to you to implement the problem. The problem should be, for you, the technical difficulty that you face in making good on that law. If that is the problem, then stick to it. And that necessarily doesn't mean going on TV to say, the interaction that he said is started, do that. If you think, per your technical advice, to say that we need to engage in some consultation, we need to do this, we need to do that, that's what you recommend. So on the basis of that, you tell Ghanaians that, yes, this is the difficulty, the law cannot be implemented now, okay, we are going through A, B, C, D processes. But this rant, which is going to the extent of indicting the whole governance process, that's what I find problem with.